Today I'm going to be talking about my design process while designing my Quinjet moving cockpit modification mock. My main goal for this mock was to have the cockpit of the Quinjet be able to move up and down like the Concorde, just like in the Avengers movie. As you can see here, the Avengers Quinjet has a sort of Concorde-like motion when landing on the helicarrier for the first time. The cockpit of the Quinjet can be moved up and locked in place with the roof, and when locked in place, it is very stable. As you can see here, if I hold it from the back, give it a good shake, it won't fall. That's because when you lock it, it stays in place with those two studs there, and so can't move. The modification is held in place by these two pins here, and they connect to these sockets here. And when I first started the mock, that's really what I knew I would need to do, is to use these pieces, but it turned out to be much more complicated than I thought. In the original set, there is a large Technic structure that goes through the middle and into the cockpit, and because of the modification, I could not have that. So what I had to do was shorten the beams and allow space for the sockets here, which means I had to sacrifice the gun turret. Finally added the cockpit, I realized there would be big gaps here when it moves down. And so to solve that problem, I added tiles to the side of the original cockpit panel and this little structure that goes on the back to cover up that top gap. I used a 4x4 plate here to let it all lock in place. For the Quinjet, there are multiple options for the angle at which to display it. First, you can have it at the regular pointed up version. Then you could have it slightly lower if you want it to be like some of the old Quinjet Lego sets. And then here, if you want like a very closed gap there, and then finally the lowest, which has a little bit of a slightly bigger gap there, but it is more pointed down and more accurate to the movie. When designing the base, I realized I also wanted to have a better interior and easier access. So I switched out the 2x10 plate for this 2x6 plate, and so now you can easily remove it and have better access to the seats inside. The cockpit, I added 2 seats here and 2 handles, and was also able to add both stickers from both sticker sheets. Original set, the wingtips only had a little bit of range. It could move up and down, but when watching the movie, I noticed that it could also turn forward when landing. So I added these ball joints here, so now it can move up and down to the right angle. I knew I had to change the stand to make it more angled, to have the right angle of attack for the Quinjet when landing. So what I did was I moved the pins a bit more down and the stand further back to allow for the correct angle. It's all back to its regular position. You really can't see a difference from the original one. I have these in light gray instead of dark gray because I have a parts shortage, but if you have it in dark gray, it really all looks the exact same as the original model, but it has this new strong function because I did build this with the intention to play with it. Designing this was a real challenge to get all the angles and the functions to be strong, look good, and all the gaps to be covered up. I also needed to figure out how to make the stand angled back and the wings move 360 degrees. So there you have it. That is my Quinjet moving cockpit mod. Some cool features about it and a bit of my design process, thought process behind designing it. Head to the description to find the link to the Rubricable page if you want to purchase instructions for this. And I should be designing more sets soon, so be on the lookout for those.